Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I'm going to talk about drafting your divorce decree. When you are in the process of divorcing, if you're going through a divorce, you're going to have to do this anyway, but there are some nuances that are really important whenever you're divorcing a narcissist because you have to get as much information in there as possible to make sure that you have specific information to establish boundaries and to establish how things are going to happen. If you're in a typical divorce where that's, it's still important to, have all that stuff drafted out and, all the assets and all that kind of stuff. But it's really important whenever you're dealing with a narcissist because they will take whatever wiggle room they get to do whatever they want or to justify it. Now, and the sad part is really no matter what you do, they're really not going to do it. But the more information you have in there to force them to do certain things, the better. For instance, one of the mistakes I made in mine was, we said, the parents will both parents will co-parent. Well, without it, even with specifics, I think it's going to be hard for a narcissist to do it. But if you email it right off the bat, and there's a certain mechanism to communicate, like either forcing email, or probably a third-party application such as My Family Wizard. There's some other ones out there. I tried to use My Family Wizard. It wasn't really ordered it was recommended, but it wasn't ordered to be done in the thing. So she just said, well, I don't have the money to do it, so I won't do it. But a narcissist is going to do everything that they can to mess with your head and to push boundaries and to make things as difficult as possible. Okay, so what that means is, let me give you an example. An example of that is, let's say, your court decree says you will share information, right? And then you try to use email to do that. What will happen is they won't get the email. It will be, oh, my email doesn't work. Oh, I didn't get that. Oh, my email crashed. Oh, did you send that? Oh, I didn't get that. But it's a multi-parter, right? So then, and then as you're battling through this, and primarily in that problem, you're expecting a response, okay? So this is where the hybrid no contact thing is really important, and establishing those boundaries for yourself, but also to make sure that there's a framework for this to work. So let me to give you an example. Like I was talking about. So the email, I didn't get your email. You sent me an email? I didn't get an email. I don't know what you're talking about. So you're like, okay. So then what do, right? You send other copies of the email. You're like, hello, I'm asking question A, which I told you before in other videos not to ask question A. Anyways, what'll happen is they won't respond because they didn't get the email. So then you will forward that email. You'll say, hello, I sent you this email 3 days ago asking this question. Could you please answer this question or provide me this information? Nothing. You'll get nothing back. So a few days later, maybe a day later, hello, I'm forwarding the previous 2 emails that I've sent you. Would you please answer them? Now, when you finally do get a response, what will happen is it'll be snarky. It will be condescending. It will be, antagonistic. It will be gaslighting. It will be all of those things. What then will happen is they will say, "Don't send me those emails." It's just a pain in the ass. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to say that. Anyways, so your best bet is to make sure that everything like step by step is in there. Now, your attorney may push you against that because, see, in a typical divorce, people get over stuff and you don't have these problems. And and the problem is early on in it, you don't know, right? I mean, so you're like, just want to get it done, whatever. You're already spending the money. You're already working towards that. And just put in the effort, put in a little bit more time to make sure you have everything outlined. So dictate the co-parenting rules, don't recommend things. Say, this, and I'm, this is how information is going to be shared. You will use one of those third-party systems. Those are good because some of those give the opportunity for the court to actually be able to look into it and determine what's going on. But just know that whatever you do, it's going to be a problem. Oh, I'm not getting that information. I didn't get the notification, whatever. So email's okay. Just save it. Just make sure you save everything. The next thing is make sure you think about all the transition times, all the transition dates. Think about it during summer. Think about it during school time. Think about the holidays. One of the mistakes that I made is I didn't think about all the other federal holidays that I actually happened to get most of those off. And the way the timing switched, I never get the kids on 3-day weekends. So when I have time off, I don't have them. Now, if that's important to you, look at those things. Look at the dates. One of the problems I had was the wording for Christmas, which said, even odd years, you switch Christmases. And there was one little caveat that said, the parent that doesn't have the kids over Christmas break can have the kids at a mutually agreed to time on Christmas Day for a few hours, right? So you could spend Christmas time. Well, the first year that rolled around where the ex had the kids, she's like, I'm leaving the state. I'm taking the state for the 3 weeks at a thing, because our vacation time is like 2.5 weeks. I'm like, no. Court order says, I get to see the kids on Christmas, and there was an argument back and forth. And her reading of it was, well, we have to agree, and I don't agree because I'm leaving the state, so you don't get to see the kids. I'm like, that's not really how it was written. So, be specific. Try to make sure that it says, that you will, if it's important to you. And it was important to me, and my kids were really stressed about it. They wanted to see both of us on Christmas. And it should have been written that the other, the parent who doesn't have the kids during Christmas break, gets them for, if you want to put time in, if you really think it's going to be bad, I would put specific time. Like, you will, the other parent who doesn't have the kids will have them from, 11 to 3, or whatever. Just something. So that way there's no, if there ever is any conversation about it, it's like, you just follow the court order. Just do that. It gets, if there's ambiguity in there, just try to clear that up, because any of those little things when it causes a reason for them to attempt to try to talk to you, to gaslight you, to manipulate you, to suck you back in, to do all those things which you don't want to have happen. And it opens things up for interpretation, which causes a whole other set of problems, right? And then if there's zero communication, if there's no co-parenting, then you're not going to be able to establish stuff. I don't know how many times that I've not done things because it's like, okay, well, is she like so when I have my kids for Christmas, she has the right to see the kids. Now, but she won't ever tell me what's going on, so I don't plan anything, right? I don't plan anything to say, oh, we're going to go someplace, because I know that I need to be here for Christmas Day so that the kids can see their mom if she decides to stick around. Now, since the duration I've done it, she leaves. And that kind of goes in the whole narcissistic thing, because it's not about the kids. It's only about her. So her thing switches to whatever is important to her, and the kids aren't part of that. She can't even empathize, because a narcissist can't even empathize with how the kids feel about it. And I'm not saying that if you have well, if you're watching this, then you're not in this situation. But people who have a good relationship, and there is co-parenting, there is communication, and if the other person is going to go someplace else, during the breaks, and then you establish, calling or something like that. Well, I guess that's okay. But my situation, the kids were really, frustrated by it. They wanted to see both of us, and it created problems. But because it was ambiguous, there was like a week and a half period where there was arguments going back and forth before it was finally resolved. And it was, so think about those things. Think about what happens if your kids are with you and it's on a transition day. Because like in my situation, it was like transition day, it's like you drop them off at school, the other parent will pick them up, which is great, because then you have no, there is no interaction. There's none of this, you go to each other's houses and everyone's hugging and crying and, I missed you, or I'm going to miss you, or all that weird stuff that you probably will experience if you're dealing with it. And just keep it as clear as possible. But what I'm talking about in that situation is so if the kids are sick, and it's a transition day, well, you're not going to take them to school when they're, sick. So it's like, I defaulted to the summer thing, because it's like, okay, well, they're not in school, so here's a school schedule and here's whatever. But it wasn't clear. So try to take a step back and think about those things. And, and if you're watching this before you've, when you're still in the process of it and you know it, then you have a huge advantage over most people, because you're learning about this before the divorce is final, so that you can fix some of this stuff and make sure that you have these mechanisms in place. Now, if you're realizing this after the fact, you either deal with the confines of what's currently in your divorce decree. Your other option, which is expensive, is to go back and add those in, which, you're talking, unless you do it yourself, there are ways to do it yourself, but, for me personally, trying to do something like that with the stress and anxiety and, how serious it is really complicated. So I personally don't recommend that, which means you need an attorney. And then there's potentials if they don't, if they're not working and you're supporting them, then they'll probably try to make you pay for their attorney, pay for her attorney or your ex's attorney as well. And it just complicates things. Now that's an option, and if you do go that route, then you definitely make sure that you go through and you annotate everything out. But you want to think about summer. You want to think about Christmas. You need to look at what the holiday schedule is from your school. Because we actually did, when this all happened for us, we switched schools, so we weren't really that familiar with it. Well, come to find out, our school, the kids' school, have these extended vacations during Christmas. It's like, you got the normal 2 weeks, but they add on 2 extra days. So it's like multiple weekends, and our paperwork said, it's the holiday to the next, from when you leave school, it's with whoever gets the kids, and then they come back. So, think about those things. Look at the schedules. Think about, anything that is important to you. If religion is important, make sure you put it in there. Think about those things and write them out, draft them out. Grab a scratch piece of paper and start drafting out. I like to use Mind Maps, which is an application, and you can do it 2 different ways. You can do it with Post-it notes, where you just write down. You sit down and you write down what's important. Christmas time. What all those different things are, and then backtrack and look at those things. Because once you've done it, once you've finished the divorce decree and it's stamped and it's done, to go back and do anything is really complicated. It just, there's a ton of money involved and all that stuff. Now, it doesn't mean, if you have the money, then, and you want to spend it towards that, that's great. But, if you're in a situation with somebody who is like this, they're not going to work with you. They are not going to be reasonable. They're not going to be fair. They're not going to, they're not going to do anything to accommodate anything, right? They're going to look at the situation as only about how it impacts them. They're not going to care about you. They're not going to care about what it means to the kids. It's only about them. And, so it makes it really tough because, this is where this is important is if you map all this stuff out, one, it limits the amount of arguments that you're going to have because it'll already be mapped out. If there is a discussion, and there are times where for me, this has worked out, where if something comes up, it's like, we'll just follow the court order. And just think about it. Think about Father's Day. Think about Mother's Day. Think about, birthdays, stuff like that. And, and who has priority for vacation. Now, okay, for instance, one of the other things that I had, so think about this, because I didn't even think about this. It was like, okay, for Christmas break, you have to tell the other person 30 days ahead of time. Well, one, if you're trying to plan anything, you can't, right? I mean, if you're trying to get reservations or something like that, 30 days isn't enough. So if you are planning on doing anything like that, you need to make sure that time frame is extended. Like you write in and say, for the not Christmas, but for vacation over the summer, you need to tell way in advance, because what will happen is they won't tell you. Or, I mean, I was just trying to schedule daycare or summer camp for the kids for while I was at work. I ended up having to pay for time that the kids didn't get to go because she wouldn't tell me. Or she would tell me and then change it. Then be like, oh, well, I really meant this date and not this date. And, whatever. I mean, you could turn around and go, you didn't tell me the appropriate time. And I think I did that once and maybe twice. And it doesn't accomplish anything. It's just all that stuff everything that they do is reactionary seeking behavior to get under your skin. Okay. So get everything written in as much as possible. So if there is any discussion, we'll follow the court order. So like I said, to recap, think about school transition times. Think about summer. Think about summer. Now, the transition times for when, what the times are. I almost wrote in a time that would have been impossible for me to get off of work, get home, and get the kids and drop them off at their mom's house. And luckily I caught that one, so I was able to extend it an hour to give me time to do that. And if you don't have a work that's accommodating, you need to think about all those things. You can write in there. I would write in specifically that, so like the school information thing, school information will be scanned and sent, or a copy will be sent. They're probably not going to do it, but then you have something to hold them to, and if it ever goes back to court, they have something that they're not following, and it just helps you. And you just got to document everything, keep copies of everything, so it's really complicated, but try to think through everything. Take a step back. And I know if you're in the midst of going through this, you're stressed and you want it over. And if you're the parent who's being brutalized financially, you have a vested interest to finish it. They have a vested interest to utilize that to make, kind of encourage you to make decisions that don't necessarily help you. But just give yourself some space. Nothing in a divorce happens quick anyways. So utilize that time to your advantage and make sure you catch everything that is really important. Okay, so that was kind of a bit of a ramble, but I wanted to talk to you about that because, if you don't think about this stuff and you don't get it in there, and then it's open for interpretation, then you're hosed, right? It just make it as clear as possible. Like, for instance, had that little thing for the Christmas time not been in there, and I didn't even think about that. My attorney actually is the one who drafted that in there. I wouldn't have seen the kids. It would have been, hey, we're leaving the state, and I might, and I'll let you know. I mean, and the other thing to expect on that, unless you say, firmly in there that the kids will talk to you or something, you know, that particular time, hey, guess what? They were never near a phone. They never, every place they went didn't have Wi-Fi, so there was no way to talk. The one time that the kids popped up online and I was able to talk to them, as soon as I started talking to them, they had to go. Oh, we have to go. We're at this Wi-Fi, we're at someone's house who has Wi-Fi, but now we're done and we have to leave. So what I ended up doing was, buying the kids' cell phones. So on that, think about that on expenses. Think about things that you are probably going to have to pay for to make sure that you have good communication with your kids that the ex isn't going to do. And if you have the money, then it doesn't matter. But just take a step back and think about all the things that are really important to you that you need to cover on your divorce decree. Take the time to go through it. If your attorney's kind of giving you grief on it, just make sure you don't just give in, because you will be living with this for a really long time. Okay? Depending on how old your kids are. If mine were relatively, well, not really young, but basically, what is it, like a 12-year time span? That's a long time. And that's a long time whenever, you're strapped financially. You don't have the money to hire attorneys and go down that road. I'm still paying my attorneys off, to be honest. Just get that stuff in there. Think about it now. Anyways, I hope that just puts some ideas in your head on what to think about, and you'll go, oh wow, okay, I hadn't thought about that, right? And you can make some changes on it. Now, if you've already passed this and it's already done, and you're now just realizing you're dealing with a narcissist, go through it. Look, if there's a framework you can deal with, if there's a framework that works for you, then just tie everything into just following that court order. That way there's no discussion, there's no opportunity for them to try to reel you back in and manipulate you or gaslight you or whatever. Just don't give them that power. And you probably have been giving them that power for a while. But if you've been under this narcissistic spell, in the fog, the narcissistic fog, like I like to call it, you've already established a pattern where you do that. So it's going to take you some time to back up and extricate yourself from that. Okay, so on that, hopefully this helps. This stuff's tough. Sometimes it's hard for me to even go back and kind of relive some of it and think about it. But my hope is that it'll put some ideas in your head so that you won't make similar mistakes that I made, and set yourself and your kids up better right off the bat. And guys and gals, this is for both, right? If you're a guy dealing with a narcissistic, ex that's the mom, or vice versa, unless that person has decided that, they're not going to be involved in the kids' lives, that's hard on the kids. It makes it easier on you. But, if you don't have that situation, then you're kind of stuck in this. So do everything you can to put yourself in the best situation to keep yourself, okay, and keep your kids okay. All right. So on that, hopefully you guys are doing good, and I will talk to you on the next one. Take it easy. Bye.